Hi there, I'm Ken Lammers. Welcome to Minor League Matters. And today we're going to talk about what's going to happen tomorrow for United States Soccer Federation, which is the presidential election, which, could be a really big event, or it could just mean business as normal. So, let's get cracking. Okay, so tomorrow there's going to be an election in the United States Soccer Federation. Now, it is not the most, sunshine, open the windows, let in the breeze type election. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And so let's start talking about what caused this. U.S. soccer has a lot of problems that are kind of inherent in the way soccer started up in the U.S. and the way it's been tried to be operated in the U.S. A lot of these come out of the fact that when the United States agreed to start a Major League Soccer, top tier Major League Soccer uh, league, that it didn't really have support in the United States. That their, prior attempts had flopped, gone bankrupt, and you didn't go to your high school soccer match. You went to football, baseball, basketball. So there was no real grassroots support. But there was enough that they were able to, by locking down on all the team spending and keeping them all within a budget, and by kind of having it become a franchise system rather than doing it the way they do in Europe, where everybody has their own team, every 3 blocks, that sort of thing. They were able to keep the league alive. They had teams go out of business and others come in. Miami failed. I think they had 2 of them in Florida fail. Good luck with the new one, by the way. So it's been rough, but they've held on. The problem now is that and of course they didn't have support in like high school and that, so they started doing academies and stuff. Partially because of that, partially because that's the way they do it in Europe, and we must do it the way they do it in Europe, of course. Yeah, all that kind of gotten carved into stone, right? Well, now soccer has become popular enough in the United States that small teams are popping up here and there. The USL is flourishing with its second tier, and soon probably will be with its third tier. The USL may, if they've got any brains in their heads, they may start doing promotion relegation from their second tier to their third tier to the PDL, which they have ties with. Although the PDL is an age limited, if I recall it. Maybe they can do it with the NPSL, make some sort of deal there. So, there's solutions in need of doing, right? They need to stop the whole academy thing, keeping people from playing it at high school, right? You really need to develop the high school base. If you're going to do grassroots in the United States, you do grassroots at high school, right? Until there are places where people go and watch high school soccer in large groups to watch their kids, their friends, or go back as alumni and alumnae to watch a sport, watch the soccer. Until you've got that, you really have a disconnect with the vast majority of Americans. Yeah, sure, you can get a certain number of college kind of upper class ones, but you need to get that to connect with Americans, working class, all that sort of stuff. Same thing with college would be good, although college has kind of come along since they don't keep people from playing in college. But high school needs to be worked into it. It needs to be worked in very badly, to the point that it's something like what baseball does, where they play in high school, or basketball does this too. Play in high school, and then over summer they do things in summer leagues. And summer leagues can be even more important in high school, but high school is important for the game, right? Okay, now having said all that, these are things I'm a big believer in. Promotion relegation needs to happen. It's not going to happen under the current system because of the way it's set up, because of the inherent interests of the people who have bought into MLS, and the fact that everybody else really doesn't have a voice, right? Uh, the stuff about getting it into the high schools and play from there, because we're really stupid about it and just looking for talent rather than looking to build the sport, probably not going to happen the way the system's set up right now. MLS needs to get out of its own way for this sport to grow in the United States. It's growing despite the MLS and despite United States Soccer Federation. And there's a chance with tomorrow's election that this could change. So let's look at the way that soccer is set up, right? This is the ideal of soccer, right, in the United States. Of course, above this, U.S. soccer is FIFA, which is never an ideal if you have to deal with FIFA. But okay, this is the ideal of soccer in the United States, right? You have USA Soccer, which is the shorthand for United States Soccer Federation, and all these other leagues are in there. UPSL, USL, NASL, NPSL, MLS. God help us. Hopefully the NWSL stays in because they're the only people we got that are really any good, and the PDL. And of course, then it has all the other stuff in it too, like Paralympics, beach soccer, every other kind of amateur soccer's in there, all the youth soccer's in there, everything's in there, right? You know, the other teams in the United States, the other leagues in the United States, NBA, MLB, NFL, NHL, wish they had this kind of monopoly, right? They just wish they had this kind of monopoly. The nearest might be the MLB, but even MLB, they're independent leagues. Maybe NFL or I don't know, but nobody has this kind of control the way that USA Soccer does, and it is supposed to sit there and be the beneficiary of all these leagues and the entire sport, and it's supposed to be beneficent and make sure things are fair, sure things work out right, make sure the sport grows properly, make sure there's room for the sport to grow, not get in the way of it growing, make sure there's room for it to grow, make sure the NWSL, where we really have good players who play for world championships, is treated right and grown. That's the way it's supposed to happen. Now let's look at what real reality is. Here's reality. Major League Soccer has a lock grip on everything. And the way it has a lock grip on anything is, and this is looking at it from the outside, there are probably other forces I'm not getting. There's more. I'm sure there's more to this than I'm getting, but this is the way it looks from the outside. Major League Soccer's got a death grip on it all, right? And is harming soccer with this. And the way it really has it is Soccer United management is their ad group, moneymaker, right? And it is fully within the MLS. And the way that U.S. Soccer makes money is from Soccer United management. So U.S. Soccer is owned basically by SUM, which is a full part of MLS, and all these other leagues don't matter, right? They're out. They are at best secondary, if not tertiary or worse considerations. All that matters is the MLS, because the MLS controls the organization that controls the money, and the organization that controls the money controls the United States Soccer Federation. That's very much the way it looks on the outside. And I am sure that there are people who are inside that system will tell me how wonderful it is and how great it is, and there's no way in the world, no way. If your overarching control organization that is supposed to make sure everybody plays fair and it works out right for everybody is controlled financially by one of the organizations that it's supposed to look over, no, that doesn't work out right. It never does. I understand why at a certain point MLS was locked in with USA or with United Soccer Federation while they were locked in this death grip together. It's not needed anymore. It needs to stop. Okay, so unfortunately here, And we all know why there was a big boom. And everybody panicked because the United States men didn't make the World Cup. Boo hoo. Um, the World Cup is a good advertisement, but it is not the thing that we need to be doing in the United States to grow this sport. You need to be doing things in the United States to grow this sport to develop grassroots connections, right? Worry less about the World Cup, worry more about the Tri City Otters, right? Worry more about, Tucson FC Tucson, however. You worry about your low level clubs that are building grassroots support, right? Worry about getting it into your high schools where people will go watch it because they'll go watch their kids play it, right? Don't stop grabbing all your good players and not letting them play in high school, right? You need to build the sport. Promotion relegation, oh my goodness, definitely needs to happen, right? Yes, I understand that those with the financial interest, the MLS, which control the SUM, which controls U.S. soccer, don't want that because they all bought franchises. But if you want to build, interest at your lower level or lower levels and build it in places where you don't have it right now, you need to have promotion relegation. This is a grassroots necessity. Well, it's not a necessity. Obviously, none of this is a necessity because the soccer keeps growing in the United States despite all the problems that they put in the way of it, all the barriers and burdens. But if you want it to grow quicker and in a better way, promotion relegation is probably the most important thing that you can do. A lot of this other stuff is secondary, right? If you can grow grassroots support, um, you know, promotion relegation is a necessity for that. Okay, that's enough of my ranting here. But let's look at who we've got as our candidates. Okay, so we've got Cathy. There are two establishment candidates, Cathy Carter and Carlos Cardiero, right? Okay, now Carter is the number one establishment candidate. She is actually the person who is the president of Soccer United Management. The person who does your ads is running to be the head of the organization that looks over all your leagues. And, she does the ads for MLS, and that money goes to U.S. Soccer. That person wants to be in charge of it all. You don't make your ad man the person in charge, right? She's, very clearly, she's the number one establishment candidate. She's in the pink zone. Cardiera is in the gray zone. He's part of MLS board or whatever, as I understand it. Maybe he's part of USSF's board. I don't know, but they're both establishment candidates. Um, Carter is the number one establishment candidate. They're really pushing her hard. Uh, According to some of the stuff I've read and listened to, the establishment is pushing her hard, trying to get her to win the first vote. Now, apparently, you have to have 50% of the votes to win. They want to get her past the first vote, so there's no possibility that other candidates can drop out and throw their support to each other, which could make it very bad for her. They want her to win on the first vote, and according to at least one podcast I've listened to, there are rumors out there that a lot of people who have votes are getting threatened. You know, the votes are already at least partially in the bag for her. MLS Soccer League has a disproportionately high and inappropriate number of votes, right? Uh, Other soccer leagues have less votes. Like the NASL has one. I think MLS has 9, if I remember right. And I don't think anybody else goes above 3. So MLS has a disproportionately high amount of votes. There's also like the Professional Players Organization or whatever, which is supposedly votes in blocks, votes as a block, and then there's all sorts of others in out there voting. Um, if you can get the MLS and the pro players, uh, who are vested in the system kind of as it stands, you can probably get pretty close, and then you just kind of have to peel off others. Uh, and I think that's what they're trying to do. The Their problem is this year is that they've got a number of other people who are popular who are trying to run. And these people have been players, television announcers for soccer, that sort of thing. And, who names that are recognized: Eric Winalda, Hope Solo, Colin Martino, and Paul, Caligari. Uh, People who are into soccer know who these people are. It's unfortunate that Hope Solo doesn't really have a well defined program and a really strong base. Eric Winalda may be the strongest out of this group. I'm not sure. He was the first one out and pretty much provided the impetus for the current president of United States Soccer to fold, because Winalda was out there talking about how things have fallen apart, how terrible it is. We need to fix all this, despite the narrative that was coming out of United States Soccer that, oh, it's all fine, no problem, no problems, right? Um, Winalda is out there running. He may be the front runner, not sure. But the problem is that these four folks here, Winalda, Solo, Martino, and Calgary, are going to cut into each other, something fierce, right? It is unlikely that any of these wins on the first ballot, if at all. Um, and there's some reasons here. I mean, look, let's be honest. These people are television announcers and sports athletes. They are not administrators, or to the best of my knowledge, one of them may have a huge company that they're running on the side, but they're not, as best I can tell, they're not really administrators, presidents, vice presidents, etc. of companies. Uh, it doesn't mean they don't have good ideas. As a matter of fact, they probably do have some pretty doggone good ideas. Uh, Anybody who's in favor of promotion relegation, I'm there with you, right? Anybody who says that soccer players not only should but must play in their local high schools, I'm there with you, right? So that's kind of these people are more along those lines. If you vote, if Carter or Cardiero get it, the odds that they change any of that stuff, are really low, right? We'll just get more of the same. Yesterday is the same as tomorrow. That's the way it's most likely going to be there. What we most likely get with the players slash TV announcers is they come in and make a lot of promises and say a lot of things, and then get the bureaucracy stalls them out as best it can. But at least, hopefully, they start an impetus, start things moving, and inertia moving in a certain direction. Uh, and then we got two guys that are attorneys who are running, Steve Gans and Michael Winograd. So if we look at our chart again here, uh, we've got established candidates out here in the gray and the pink. We've got a whole bunch of player type candidates that are here in the brown, right? And then we got a couple of attorneys who are off the chart, period, really. Now, I'm sure they're in there somewhere. They're probably in the brown, too, probably running some smaller leagues or some such thing, or representing people who are playing and that sort of thing. But, so they are kind of interesting to see, because they might actually have the administrative ability to fight through the bureaucracy, and they might actually be able to accomplish some change. The problem, of course, with the whole system is opaque, right? You cannot see into what's going on. There have been a couple points where they did open meetings and said whatever they were going to say in front of groups. I think there was a youth soccer congress or whatever that they all came together and made statements, and some of them actually said things, but but a lot of them said things that really didn't have any teeth to them because they didn't provide anything to back it up. And some of them, particularly Cathy Carter, said a whole bunch of pretty nothings, right? The kind of thing you expect from an ad person, right? We're going to sound really, really good without promising you jack, right? Which is, she, as far as I can tell, I can't tell anything that she's promised. Now, I'm told that she's got position papers on her website and all that, but she never says anything out loud. And as we all know, anybody who's had anything to do with politics knows, the position papers don't mean jack unless you've got somebody who's dedicated to follow through on them. And you know, she really looks like the candidate that's going to keep things the same. Well, both the establishment candidates do. Okay, so we're at the point where the panic, the absolute panic, because men didn't make the World Cup, a once every 4 year tournament, uh, has kind of subsided, right? The guy who was at head of the United States Soccer Federation tried to ride the wave, and we'll get past this, and everything's good. We're still in good shape, but it didn't work for him, right? He went down, and but he chose his successor, which is Carter, and trying to shove her down the throats of everybody because you know wants to keep the thing exactly the same way it is now, right? Uh, so that's iffy, uh, you know. But we'll see. We're going to have to see tomorrow. If Carter wins on the first ballot, I think there's going to be lots and lots of dissolution in United States soccer. I mean, there's lots of people out there who are just going to go, that's it. I'm just going to go play in my local soccer league and disconnect, right? And at least partially, that's what the establishment would like to happen. Go home, shut up, don't say anything, right? We're just going to run our major soccer league here, as much of a cash cow as we can make off of it, and we're all good. So, as I said, the situation would go back to normal, where it was. We could end up with a couple of people, or one person in who's a reformer, former player, et cetera, and we might see some huge splashes. If you're Hope Solo and you win and you go in and go, no, no, we're not doing any of this academy stuff anymore. We're going back through the high schools. More power to you. If you're one of the others that's promised promotion relegation, more power to you. One would hope that at the end of all this, no matter who wins, they would look around and see, okay, look, promotion relegation is a coming thing, whether we want it or not. This is you, establishment candidates. Whether we want it or not, promotion relegation is a coming thing. We're going to have to deal with it. Let's work this out and make the MLS a 46 team or 48 teams, and 24 teams will be in the top and 24 will be in the bottom. Massive expansion, however you want to do it. Or we just, expand, allow teams to come up from the USL and down, right? I know that requires a big change in the way MLS runs, but something needs to happen. If the world was a fair place, the USL would get all their second tier stuff going really well, get their third tier stuff going, get promotion relegation going there, get themselves going with the UPSL, NPSL, probably both, PDL maybe even, all those teams, and then all of it gets bumped up, right? USL 2 becomes USL 1, USL 3 becomes USL 2, and then one of the minor leagues, or maybe none of them, maybe it just stays that way, moving up and down, right? And MLS can get moved down, like it probably should be, if it's not able to adapt and overcome. Yes, I realize that's never going to happen in the real world, but it's kind of a spitballing thing. U.S. soccer needs to be fixed. It needs to get out of its own way and let the growth of soccer that's taking place in the United States actually happen, rather than continually hampering it the way it's doing now, with fake, events and fake, if you've seen an announcement for a U.S. or MLS franchise, there's a reason that they only show the people up at the podium, right? If you announced a new NFL team coming to name your city, right? We're going to put a new NFL team in Charlotte, North Carolina. You could fill a stadium just with people that would come to the announcement, right? It ain't that way for the MLS, and we all know it ain't that way for the MLS. It's one of those things that, like I say, it needs to get out of its own way and let the grassroots growth occur. And now that I've rambled on plenty, and hopefully this actually uploaded the way it's supposed to. I'm at a hotel, obviously, We'll see. But say the same thing I always say. Tell me down below why I'm wrong and what I'm wrong about, and why I'm right. You know, I promise I'll try to read them. Although this weekend's a 3-day trip to go watch hockey matches, so I'm not going to be able to reply. Pretty much guaranteed. Uh, if you like what you see here today, hit like. If you like what you're seeing around here generally, hit subscribe. Go watch everything 900 times because that's about the only way I'll ever be able to monetize this place under YouTube's new rules. And besides that, I've just got one piece of advice. Go watch the minor league sports. Oh, and a second piece. Pay attention to what happens tomorrow in the MLS vote or USSF vote. Probably the same thing. Anyway, I'll see you all soon. Bye now.